On Dispatch tonight, your layout photos, the question of the week, and a big shout out. Coming right up. You're watching Dispatch, the variety show for model railroaders. I'm Roy Smith, and thanks for joining me. As I said, we have your layout photos, the question of the week, and a big shout out coming up on the show. Unfortunately, Justin Case won't be able to join us tonight, but hopefully he will be back soon because Justin knows a thing or two about model railroading. And speaking of Justin, my friend Lee Weldon has suggested that Justin might be willing to respond to your questions right here on Dispatch. So if you have a question that you would like to ask Justin, just put it in the comments section down below. Hopefully I can persuade him to respond. Remember, no matter how nonsensical your question may be, you can be sure that Justin will have an answer that makes positively no sense at all. Now then, as you probably know, there are a lot of model railroad challenges making the rounds on YouTube these days. One of these is Sparky 107's Caboose Challenge. Well, I have a response to Sparky's Caboose Challenge, and I would like to include it at the end of the show. My response to Sparky's challenge is so short that it doesn't deserve a separate video of its own. Stick around for it, you will see what I mean. And two other things before turning to your layout photos. First, my wife Leonore stopped by the train room just a little while ago. As you may recall, she is Panamanian, and if it wasn't for me, she probably never would have seen any model trains, because so far as I know, I'm the only model railroader in the country. Anyhow, I took this photo to prove that she does stop by from time to time, and I want to share the photo with you because it gives me a chance to show you how high my bench work is. Leonore is 5 feet 7 inches tall. Meanwhile, the upper level of my layout is 4 feet 9 inches above floor level. That makes Leonore only 10 inches taller than the upper level of my layout. Well, I'm a big believer in high bench work, especially in N scale, because I like to see my trains up close. And getting back to Sparky 107, I want to mention that he made a donation to this channel not long ago, and I applied his donation to the purchase of these two new freight cars. Thanks, Sparky. I appreciate it. I'm in the process of expanding my fleet of freight cars because this year I want to set up and begin to use some kind of formal operation system on my layout. I'll probably start with car cards and waybills. As you may know, I mostly run unit trains on my layout, just like most of the trains running on the prototype Evanston Subdivision. Every car in a unit train is the same kind of car, and every car in the train carries the same kind of load. All of the cars in a unit train run from the same origin to the same destination, with no switching along the way. I did a video about unit trains some time back. I'll put a link to that video down below. I love watching those unit trains roll across my layout, but they don't give me any opportunities for switching along the way. So I need to build up my inventory of freight cars in order to run more mixed freight trains. And although I don't have hardly any industries to serve on my layout, again, just like the prototype, I can do yard classification that will send the cars to various destinations off layout. I've been busy building my layout for going on 7 years now. It's high time that I set up a formal system of operations. I will take you along as I do just that. And you can participate in it by supporting this channel through a PayPal donation, just like Sparky did, if you would like to. Just click on the PayPal link down below in the description to this video. All right, let's get started with your layout photos. Once again, you all posted a bunch of photos of your layouts in our Facebook group, and I have brought them over to Dispatch to share with everyone during the show. Here they are. After the show, I invite you to go to the Facebook group and post a photo of your layout there because we want to see what you're doing on your layout. I will put a link to the group down below. You will know you've arrived at the Facebook group when you see this photo at Echo Canyon on my layout. If you posted a photo but didn't see it here, then be sure to watch for it on the next edition of Dispatch. Remember, it doesn't matter what scale you model in, and yes, you can post photos of your club's layout. And now it's time for our question of the week. Here's this week's question. What advice would you like to offer to a newcomer in the hobby? Here's how you responded to this question. You suggested that newcomers to the hobby do the following. Consider your space limitations. We model railroaders almost never have as much space for our layouts as we would like to have. Carefully decide what scale to model in because each scale has advantages and disadvantages. Do lots of research. Sometimes this is called armchair model railroading. Read model railroad books, watch videos, and learn how real railroads work. Select an era and geographic location for your layout. This will give it a sense of consistency and realism. Find out which companies make the best, most reliable model railroad equipment. Buy the best quality stuff you can afford. Draw a 1-to-1 size layout plan and put it on the floor in the same space where you intend to build your layout before you actually begin to build it. Power your layout with DCC because it's a great way to run multiple trains on your layout at the same time. Join a model train club. Hang out with friends in the hobby. It's a great way to learn about the hobby. Lay some initial tracks so that you can run a train right away. Then you can work on the rest of your layout at a leisurely pace. Start small. At first, don't try to build a layout so large that it overwhelms you and you become discouraged. Build your layout in sections or modules. Know that the hobby can be expensive. Try to stick to your budget. Ask questions. Learn from others. Experiment. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Almost every aspect of the hobby involves a learning curve. Learn new techniques. You may discover better ways to do things. Be willing to change your track plan as you build and operate your layout. Don't glue your track down or ballast it right away because after running trains on it for a while, you may discover some changes that you'd like to make to your track arrangement. Take your time. It's a hobby. There's no hurry. Don't be afraid to start over if your first attempt doesn't satisfy you. And have fun. Now, we do have a question for the coming week, and here it is. Do you think it's possible to ever finish building a layout? If not, why not? Post your responses to this question in the comments section down below. Then I will share your responses right here on the next episode of Dispatch. Here again is the question for the coming week. Do you think it's ever possible to finish building a layout? If not, why not? And now it's time for our big shout out. And our big shout out goes to Carl Brainerd and his HO Scale Clear Lake Timber Company Railroad. Carl's layout portrays logging operations in the Pacific Northwest. The layout fits a spare bedroom. It is L-shaped with each leg of the L extending 9 feet. The track plan is point-to-point with 2 switchbacks connecting a logging camp at one end of the layout to a sawmill at the other end. The layout features sharp curves and steep grades, typical of a logging railroad. Okay, let's take a look at Carl's layout in a clip from one of his recent videos.
Taking a quick tour of the railroad on the far left end, or what I'd call the west end, we have an interchange there, an interchange track where the railroad connects to the rest of the outside world. A couple of re-railers there just to keep things handy. The first building we come to is the company headquarters. It's also a warehousing place where the company can store stuff on its way up to the logging camp. Next over, we have the log dump track and the log dump itself, the pond. And you can just barely see a Barnhart loader back in there, which pulls the logs off the cars. A little further to the right, we come to the sawmill, the main thing on the layout. And you see a log train parked there in front of it. Continuing our tour of the west end, we have over here a yard office and a coaling tower, a small water tank, a sanding facility, and finally an engine house. See a shay backing out. And that pretty much completes what's here at the west end. Continuing on to the logging camp, we see a locomotive and a train entering from the switchbacks. And in the logging camp, we have a commissary, lunchroom, And over here, a log loading area and a warehouse storage facility.
I encourage you to go over to Carl's channel to watch the rest of this video and other videos about his layout. If you like what you see when you're over there, be sure to subscribe. I will put a link to Carl's channel down below. Carl, keep up the good work. Thanks for sharing your layout with the rest of us. Now, in a moment, I'm going to respond to Sparky's Caboose Challenge. But first, I want to invite you to watch my recent video, Signature Scenes, When Dispatch Ends, if you haven't seen it yet. In it, I discuss the concept of signature scenes, and I share your photos of signature scenes on your layouts. Check out this video to find out why it's quickly becoming one of the most popular videos on this channel. I will put a link to it down below. And now, my response to Sparky's Caboose Challenge. Don't blink or you may miss it. That's right, the locomotives are running light. No freight cars and no cabooses either. In fact, I don't have a single caboose anywhere on my layout. My layout is modern era, and cabooses were phased out on real railroads way back in the 1980s. They were replaced with flashing end-of-train devices like this one on the last car in freight trains. Maybe I should get a caboose for my layout and put it on static display, just like this one that stands rusting on a track at Evanston. Naturally, I would need to weather it heavily. The red arrow in this Google satellite view indicates where that caboose sits in the Evanston rail yards, along with a couple of other unused cars donated by the Union Pacific to the city of Evanston and awaiting disposition. If you haven't seen Sparky's Caboose Challenge yet, there's a link to it down below. Check it out. In fact, there are a bunch of links down below which I mentioned throughout this video. I hope you will check them all out. I also want to remind you that there are hundreds of other videos for you to watch right here on this channel. I will include a link to my videos page down below. Go over to it and browse around. Or you can watch these videos over here just by clicking on them. I'd like to thank you for letting me share the world's greatest hobby with you here on Dispatch. I'm Roy Smith. Until next time, happy railroading.